Okay, hi, this is an introduction to 1984. Gotta say, not my favourite cover for a novel, but there you go, just some boring looking chairs. But this is, you've hopefully, possibly, maybe heard of 1984, very, very famous dystopian fiction looking forward to a grim old future. And I can also remember the date this was published, 1948, because how Orwell came up with the date 1984 was he just turned around 48 to 84. So contrast with The Handmaid's Tale, similar aim to warn people of what the writer sees as, a terrible future if some trends that are discernible in society carry on. So 1984 was written and published by George Orwell in 1948, just after the end of the Second World War. And Britain was still, and for a long time still, extremely devastated by the cost of the war. So this period was known as austerity, which means there wasn't very much money at all. So quite a lot of the context of this, the grimness of everyone's lives, could be seen to very much reflect what life was like in Britain. It is set in a Britain, but there's lots of satire or direct irony about both totalitarian regimes that had really threatened or had come to be really important during the Second World War: Nazi Germany and Stalinist Russia. Okay, so there's some quite strong contexts, and if you've studied those periods in history, you might find this an interesting text as well. But some of the things he predicts, I've seen, people have been really impressed by his sort of prediction of this surveillance state. So when people talk about Big Brother, you've probably heard of the television program, even if you haven't heard of this book. That's what they mean. I mean, the rise of a surveillance state in which people are always being spied on. It was a bright, cold day in April, and the clocks were striking 13. Winston Smith, his chin nuzzled into his breast in an effort to escape the vile wind, slipped quickly through the glass doors of Victory Mansions, though not quickly enough to present a swirl of gritty dust from entering along with him. The hallway smelt of boiled cabbage and old rag mats. At one end of it, a coloured poster, too large for indoor display, had been tacked to the wall. It depicted simply an enormous face, more than a metre wide. The face of a man of about 45, with a heavy black moustache and ruggedly handsome features. Winston made for the stairs. It was no use trying the lift. Even at the best of times, it was seldom working, and at present, the electric current was cut off during daylight hours. It was part of the economy drive in preparation for Hate Week. The flat was 7 flights up, and Winston, who was 39 and had a varicose ulcer above his right ankle, went slowly, resting several times on the way. On each landing, opposite the lift shaft, the poster with the enormous face gazed from the wall. It was one of those pictures which are so contrived that the eyes follow you about when you move. Big Brother is watching you, caption beneath it ran. Inside the flat, a fruity voice was reading out a list of figures which had something to do with the production of pig iron. The voice came from an oblong metal plaque, like a dulled mirror, which formed part of the surface of the right-hand wall. Winston turned a switch, and the voice sank somewhat, though the words were still distinguishable. The instrument, the telescreen it was called, could be dimmed, but there was no way of shutting it off completely. Okay, so a bit like in The Handmaid's Tale, there's 2 or 3 references there to things you haven't heard of, and you think, what is that? Hate Week, for example. It's just like, what the heck is Hate Week? And Big Brother, who's Big Brother? But the image would probably resonate. People would guess that sounds a lot like Stalin. Okay, not Hitler. It's Stalin who had the big bushy moustache, and Stalin, was probably, you would say, more handsome than Hitler. Oh God, who's the most attractive dictator? Bit scary. So that victory mansions, the sense of propaganda, and wartime propaganda was used by all the nations fighting in the Second World War, not just the bad ones. Yeah, there'd been a lot of propaganda in Britain as well. So that sense of the state oppressing the people, but that idea of the telescreen, that was a new word. That was a word that Orwell made up. This idea of the screen in your house that's always on and watching you and you can't switch off. It's a chilling, paranoia-inducing feeling. Now, 1984 is one of the grimmest, pessimisticest books. Pessimisticest, you know. So if you like a bit of tragedy and grimness, you can certainly enjoy that. There's not a ray of hope at the end of it. I'm trying to warn you. The Handmaid's Tale ends a bit more ambiguously. So they're quite a nice pair to compare. But if you have other dystopian fictions, you know, not the Hunger Games, ones that are on lists, you could use any of those with 1984.